reducing the environmental impact from celebrations of the Hindi elephant-faced god Ganesh.
In all Russia's turmoil, it has never come to this. President Yeltsin said the day would decide the nation's destiny.
The nightmare that so many people have feared for so long is playing out its final act here. Russians are killing Russians in front of a grandstand audience.
It was his humility which produced affection from Catholics throughout the world. But his departure is a tragedy for the Catholic Church.
Israel's right-winger Ariel Sharon visited the religious compound, and that started the trouble. He wants Israel alone to have sovereignty over the holy sites, an idea that's unthinkable to Palestinians.
After 45 years of division, Germany is one. In Berlin, 1 million Germans celebrate the rebirth of Europe's biggest and richest nation.
You're watching Newsday on the BBC. I'm Sharon Jutlale in Singapore.
I'm Kasia Madeira in London. Our top stories this hour. There are signs a new approach to resolving the Syria crisis is emerging, with Russia and the United States in discussions over a political solution.
And this story has been closely followed on BBC.com. Across Asia, the attempt by a Japanese mountaineer who previously lost 9 fingers to frostbite to climb Mount Everest. Bad weather forced Nobukazu Koriki to abandon it, but writing on Facebook, he thanked all those who supported him.
Now let's take a look at some of the front pages from around the world. Not surprisingly, the China Daily is leading on President Xi's meetings in New York. The paper adds that the First Lady, there she is, made history at the UN by giving 2 major speeches in English. Now, the International New York Times is leading on the multi-million-dollar shadow economy that has developed in Turkey to profit from migrants moving toward Europe. And it includes this photo that you can see, which shows a shop in the town of Izmir, which is selling life jackets and also inner tubings needed to get across. And finally, the Japan Times is marking the first anniversary of the sudden eruption of Mount Ontake that killed 58 people, with this absolutely extraordinary picture of the summit of the mount, which is still covered with that thick volcanic ash. So those are the papers. Now, Sharonjit, which stories are sparking discussions online?
Well, Kasia, funny you should word that. You should use that word, sparking, because the most watched video on BBC.com is all about a man in the United States. He set fire to a petrol station, but let me tell you how he did it. This is a man who apparently is afraid of spiders, and when he spotted one on his car, he tried to burn it with a lighter. Just watch what happened next.
He didn't have a cigarette. He didn't have anything on him. So all of a sudden I looked out and I seen flames. There's some people that are scared of spiders, but...
Would you set it on fire?
No. He was sorry. He apologized. He was sorry. He didn't know. And, you know, it's just one of them things that happen. Stupidity. That's all I would call it. Do you know gas go boom?
Stupidity, there's an understatement. Now, democracy activists in Hong Kong are gearing up to mark the first anniversary of the umbrella movement. Over more than 2 months ago, tens of thousands paralysed key parts of the city, calling for greater democracy. Their demands were not met, but the protest inspired a creative outpouring on an industrial scale. Some of that protest art has been preserved, as Juliana Liu now reports.
The most special thing about this art is that it was not created by professional artists. That's different from what you would normally see in a typical political campaign. All this was created by ordinary people. And there were so many of them doing it. Some of them borrow ideas from others, but everyone was engaged in the creative process.
Let's take a look at this piece. It was fashioned out of plastic water bottles and a mat. It's essentially something to protect one's arm against attack. So creative, there was in fact an outpouring of creativity in a place that's not known for it.
I think a lot of people say that Hong Kong is not a creative city. Because of the movement, we can see that it is the system that suppresses creativity. The people are actually very artistic. We have to rethink the assumption that Hong Kong people are not capable of being free or creative.
There's a huge amount of debate over the legacy of the umbrella movement, whether it was successful politically. What about artistically?
Artistically, it was a very positive movement in terms of freedom of expression. There was so much enthusiasm and initiative. Regardless of whether the movement succeeds politically, it has successfully demonstrated the power of the people's creative self-expression.
Curator Samson Wong speaking there. Now, many religions worship idols, and Hinduism is no exception. Every September, people celebrate Lord Ganesh with clay statues ranging from a few centimetres to anything up to 20 metres tall. Now, it's an age-old tradition, but the pressure of modern living is starting to have an impact on it. In the first of a new series looking at business based around religion, we meet those trying to make the Ganesh Chaturthi festival more friendly to the environment.
There is huge scope and demand for these idols. Lately, because of awareness created by the government and social organizations, people have started to ask for idols made from clay. We make between 25,000 and 30,000 idols every year. Almost half of them are made from clay. There are not that many skilled artists who can make clay idols.
We celebrate this festival every year with our family. In the beginning, we used to buy idols made of plaster of Paris. But after we learned about its impact on the environment, we started buying idols made of clay.
A rare event will unfold in the coming hours, which will turn the moon a rusty colour and may make it seem a little larger. A total lunar eclipse will coincide with a so-called supermoon, which means the full moon is in the closest part of its orbit to Earth and it will appear bigger in the sky. The eclipse will be visible in North America, South America, West Africa and Western Europe, partially visible in the Middle East and South Asia. Let's get more on this. We're joined by Professor Jay Pasakoff, who is Professor of Astronomy at Williams College near Boston, Massachusetts. Professor, thank you very much for joining us. Just how rare is this phenomenon?
Well, a lot of what you've been reading is hype. It's not really very rare at all. This is the fourth in a series of 4 lunar eclipses over the last couple of years. This one is a tiny fraction of a percent bigger than, because the moon's a little closer than one about 3 or 4 years ago. So it's pennies on a $10 or £10 note that it's a little bigger. So it's not really any bigger than anybody would notice. And it's not going to turn red. The red is there all the time when the sunlight goes through the Earth's atmosphere, but it's just usually there's some direct sunlight hitting the moon. And when the Earth blocks some or all of it, then we see that little bit of faint light that's trickled through the atmosphere of the Earth all the time.
So, Professor, NASA's saying that the last time this happened was 33 years ago. That's a bit misleading, is it?
I think it's very misleading, and it's not completely false because something a tenth of a percent bigger was 33 years ago, but it's nothing that anybody would notice. Basically, this is the fourth in a series over the last couple of years. It's always fun to see. A new moon is always nice. I mean, a full moon, sort of vanilla ice cream color, and then it's always nice when the Earth's shadow gets in the way, and we see on the eclipse part, on the dark part, that it's really glowing a little very faintly reddish from the light that's leaking through the Earth's atmosphere. But there's nothing really special about it. It's just a lot of fun. Anybody on the half of the Earth for which the moon is up can look at it, and it can be inspirational for students or others to realize that scientists can predict this kind of thing, that we understand the motions of the heavens.
Professor Jay Pasakoff, rare or not, you make it sound absolutely stunning. I really hope to see it. Thank you very much for joining us here on Newsday.
Welcome.
As do I, Kasia. Well, you've been watching Newsday. I'm Sharonjit Lail in Singapore.
And I've been Kasia Madeira in London. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Good morning. Well, it was a pretty decent weekend for most parts of the United Kingdom, and it looks like the coming week offers a lot of fine and dry weather. High pressure really dominating things. It's going to keep us fine and dry, keeps these weather fronts out towards the north and the west of us. But with high pressure overnight, clear skies, temperatures dropping away. Major town cities just about slipping into single figures, but it's in more rural spots where we are looking at temperatures at the bottom end of single figures for some, close to freezing. And on top of that, there'll be some mist and some fog. That'll be at its densest in the northeast of England. Further south and west, it looks like a fine start to the day. Yes, there'll be a few patches of cloud here and there, but it's a dry start, and there's still a keen breeze along the south coast of England, but moving land the winds are that bit lighter. Still a few patches of cloud here and there, but that fog in the northeast of England could well be a bit reluctant to clear. It'll take till the middle or latter parts of the morning before it does so. So it's a poor visibility early on. Bear that in mind if you're heading out on the roads. Just the odd patch of mist and fog for Scotland, Northern Ireland, maybe a bit more cloud towards the northern and western Isles. Maybe a spot or two of rain to go with that, but most of us fine and dry. That fog will lift into low clouds mid to late morning and then disperse into the afternoon. And the afternoon looks set fair for pretty much all parts of the UK. It's dry, good sunny spells, a bit of patchy cloud here and there. Still a bit of a breeze in the south and the north and west, but inland the winds are that bit lighter. And after a chilly start, we'll get temperature up to 17, 18, maybe even 19 or so degrees. So quite a warm sort of afternoon. And then through the evening, we've got some Premier League football taking place pretty much underneath clear skies. And by the end of the match, I suspect we'll see those temperatures dipping back down into single figures. So chilly start today once again on Tuesday. A few patches of mist and fog. Southern Scotland, Northern England, Northern Ireland. Any early cloud tends to break up into the afternoon. So once again, we're looking at a fine afternoon with some good spells of sunshine. Still breezy in the south and the northwest, but inland, lighter winds. And again, it's the middle to upper teens quite widely. On into the middle of the week, and this weak weather front might just bring a spot or two of rain to the far north of the UK, but elsewhere fine and dry, and still a bit of a breeze blowing across the southern half of the UK in particular, but a lot of fine and dry weather to be had through this week. The mornings, though, will be quite cold with some patches of mist, maybe some fog, and as we've seen, a bit of a breeze blowing for some of us, but nothing too untoward. Maybe heading off towards the near continent to start the new week. And, well, Scandinavia, down through France, Germany, across towards Poland, all underneath the same area of high pressure, which is affecting our weather. So some fine weather across the north of Europe. It's in the south where things are much more unsettled. Some heavy showers around in southern Portugal, southern Spain. In fact, those heavy showers stretch all the way across towards the Balkans. Could be some thunder and some lightning here.
If a GP looks at a patient across the table and says, if you don't lose some weight, you're going to have a heart attack, and the guy says, well, give me statins, because I'm not doing that. What's the doctor supposed to do? Say no.
Greece is saying, we're not so sure we should go along with these EU sanctions. What are they thinking? We don't know how to fight this war, and it's happening so fast that we don't have the equipment, the personnel, or the time to deal with this.
The Papers, every night at 10:30 and 11:30 on the BBC News Channel.
Hello, I'm Kasia Madeira with BBC World News. Our top stories. There are signs of a shift in Western policy towards Syria. Diplomats are suggesting that President Assad could stay as leader but must step down eventually. While Presidents Obama and Putin are expected to meet on Monday to discuss whether a new approach is possible. Meanwhile, France has for the first time launched airstrikes against fighters of the Islamic State group in Syria. And this video is trending on BBC.com. It shows stunning images of a total lunar eclipse, illuminating the moon a rusty shade of red. The full moon is in the closest part of its orbit to Earth, meaning it appears bigger in the sky. The eclipse will be visible from America to Africa. That's all from me. Do stay with us here on BBC World News. And the top story here in the UK, Labour's Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell will use his first major speech at the party conference later to call for a Robin Hood tax on stock market trading. Lots more on our website, but now here on BBC News, it's time for all the business news live from Singapore with Sharon Jeet.
A tale of two economies. The presidents of the US and China discussed global markets, but did they find any common ground? And what's India's Prime Minister shared when he met Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg in Silicon Valley? Hello and welcome to Asia Business Report. I'm Sharon Jeet in Singapore. Now, China's President Xi Jinping has pledged billions of dollars to fight poverty and gender discrimination at a United Nations Leaders Summit in New